Yeah, we're live. Wow, that's a terrible. I gotta fix that just really quick here. Get it on my spot. There we go. That's much better. This thing down here. See what's going on. Yeah, we're live. Hooking everything up. So, Omni turbo motor. Next door, we got some chassis dyno stuff going on. Very cool. One of the racers that came in brought his Mustang in. They're doing a test. I showed you guys last night. He's got an LS motor in it, and they're doing a cool test. We've run it on the engine dyno before, but I haven't actually seen it done on the chassis dyno, so that's why I want to go over and show you guys the results. So good. Hey, Hump Day. So what they're doing is they're running a back-to-back test on the change in runner length on the fast adjustable manifold on a Recport LS motor. So, and it's doing fairly well. The interesting thing is it's a similar result that we see on the engine dyno, but I thought it'd be cool to show you guys what's happening on the chassis dyno, because for one, this is a very, very cool car. I mean, it actually is a real road race car, and not just a road race car, it's a really fast one. It's a very successful. They have a good package, they got a good combination, and I like the fact that they're trying different things, because that's how you find out, that's how you find more power. You got to test stuff. You got to go, hey, like always, we don't have enough power. We need more power. So here's how you get it. You look on the dyno, you change intake manifolds, you try camshaft, you try all kinds of different things. But here's my little turbo motor with a variety of different issues on this thing. So hopefully you guys took a look at the video that I have up. I did a video on doing a leak down test on this, and as we saw, the leak down was all very good. 2 of the holes were about 11 or 12. 2 of them were closer to 8 or 9, which was good. Anything under 10 for something that I pull out of the junkyard, I mean, I can't expect that much. And a lot of times what happens, and I mentioned this in the video, is what happens after we get it running and the motor says, oh, look, somebody's paying attention to me, I'm happy again, and it knocks all the stuff off the valves, and the thing gets happier and it seals up, the pistons kind of, the rings reseat themselves, and I tend to get better cranking compression and leak down numbers after we run it for a little bit, because, you know, everybody likes to be paid attention to, and the motors are no different. So I'm hoping that this is a good example and we can run this thing without any problems. Now, I haven't taken the valve cover off. I want to do that because what I want to find out, I just want to make sure these early ones were flat tappet cams before they went to rollers. So I want to make sure that the cam's in good shape, and we will definitely do that and make sure that the cam's okay, because we just don't want them, you know, going flat, because it's a flat tappet cam. So what do you say? Let's walk over, and I want to show you guys what's going on over on the chassis dyno. Take a look at that. Look at the results of the dyno testing, the intake manifold swap that they did. What's up, Troy? Ooh, sounds like they're getting ready to make another run. Taking a drink of my beverage, frosty cold beverage. Really loud. What's up, Ish? What's up? Hey, can you show me the change in runner length? Oh, yeah. Let's go take a look at that. Yeah. Ish throwing the tune on her. So you guys can see.
Oh, I can't see. Oh, there we go.
Can you see there? Was I in your way? That's how it always is.
This is with the short runner.
Yeah.
And long. Oh no, sorry.
It's a little more of a difference than that, huh?
All right. Short runner versus Long run.
There we go. Okay, now you guys can take a look at it. See, so the red is the long runner, the one that's making an awful lot more torque, all the way out to, as you can see, all the way out to 6,500. Now the short runner did make more power from about 6,400 or so on out to 7,000, but the peak was really not changed that much. They were within 1 or 2 horsepower on the peak. It's just that as the long runner started falling off out to 6,900 or so, the other one continued. But look at the trade-off. And this is kind of, if you take a look at any of the videos I have up where we've run this fast manifold with the adjustable runners on it, you can see that. And the long runner versus the short runner, in, you know, it's really hard to beat that runner length up to 6,500 RPM. And we show that time and time again. And then the question always is, okay, you ran the long runner, you ran the short runner, but what about the mid-length runner, which they do have? That's the blue runner for the fast. What about the mid-length runner? That's going to be the good one. That's going to allow us to have all of the power, all the top-end power of the short runner and all the bottom end of the long runner, except it doesn't do that. What it does, as you might imagine, you guys have probably seen the videos, it would be right in between those two everywhere, all the way up to the top. So it would have a little bit, thanks Ish.
Yep.
You doing more tuning?
Maybe a little tweak just to get the air tool nice and straight.
Yeah, otherwise good. Nice. It sounds good. Sounds clean, man. So as I was saying, the mid-length runner just puts everything kind of right in the middle of those two things. It doesn't, you know, it's not the magic one. It doesn't add a whole bunch more. It doesn't take away. It's the long runner, like I said, and we've shown this, like if you take a look at the LS3 intake manifold video that I have up, it's really hard to beat the factory LS3 manifold. And it has the right runner length for that combination, and it makes really good power. And, you know, you can make more peak power at the top with some of the short runner stuff, like a, you know, for instance, a Super Victor or something like that. But as always, and as we saw there, the trade-off in power is on the short runner stuff is that you lose a lot of low-speed power. And so most guys, especially, you know, if you're in a street car, on a drag race car that you're going to 8,000, maybe the short runner manifold is a really good way to go. But for most applications, having all that extra torque, and in the case of this test on the chassis dyno and also on the engine dyno, when we did that, you're looking at about 50 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, nobody I know wants to give up 50 foot-pounds of torque. Check it out. Yeah, OG IROC, 5-liter tune port motor. That's when they made Camaros had real power. And they had tune port motors in them. Yeah. Big throaty turbo on that one. Frosty cold beverage. All right, let's get you back up at your spot. Talk to you guys, see what's up, see what you guys are thinking. So the announcement for tonight is that we kind of want to see this turbo motor in the background. I mean, I like the fact that the valve cover at least says turbo on it. Back this on, this thing up. Yeah, back it up, Buttercup. So the announcement for tonight is I think I found a Dodge Omni GLH turbo. A complete car, not just a motor. Not just a motor from leftover 84 600 that nobody cared about. An actual Dodge Omni GLH turbo. And not only that, it's actually an original owner car. So that's very, very cool. Now, I did make him a promise, and I would always keep that promise, that if he wants to buy the car back because he's the original owner, I'll sell him the car back. Because I know how important that is. I'm an original owner of my 5-liter Mustang, and it's a car that I don't want to get rid of unless it goes to my son, perhaps. But otherwise, I can understand wanting to keep that and how important it is. So if he comes back to me later on and says, hey, look, I really got to have that car, I told him, dude, I completely understand, and you know, I had lots of fun with it, and now it's your turn to go back and do the things you want to do, so it's all awesome. So I'm hoping tomorrow to go pick that up, and obviously I'll do a video on that, and we'll do a walk around and talk about, because it's not even a stock one, it's actually got some cool stuff on it. So we'll be able to talk about everything that's going on there, and I'll be able to use that for some very cool chassis dyno stuff, along with this up on the engine dyno as soon as I can find a bell housing for it and fix a couple of the issues nothing major, you know, nothing that we can't overcome. I'm excited that we can run you know, some kind of standalone management on it. That way we can get the tune right and not have to rely on whatever timing curve came in the factory stuff or the Mopar computer. Although now I think that there are guys that are doing programming on that ECU. I think that they probably cracked that long ago and now can make it basically do whatever they want and run it with different, you know, different map sensors, 2-3 bar stuff, so that you can get some boost in these things, which is what these poor little 8-valve heads need. They don't flow that well. The later stuff, obviously, the Lotus motor and the Maserati motor, those things, those heads flow quite a bit better than these, and ported, obviously, they flow even better. But, you know, I still like these. I'm not getting it because I think it's the ultimate, you know, 2.2 liter power producer, or in the case of the Omni, a 2.5. So it's the big block of the turbo motors. And I'm excited about that because one of the tests that I want to do on the engine dyno, or we could also do it on the chassis dyno, is I want to demonstrate with the same turbo and manifold and an intake manifold and all that same camshaft. I want to show what the response rate difference is between the 2.2 and the 2.5. So we can show, hey, look, if you have a, let's say we were, for instance, to put a bigger turbo on it. If we go from the stock turbo to a something fairly sizable, let's say that we put a GT3582 on it, or even a GT3076, but we put something that was fairly good size on it that we needed, that showed that it has a kind of a laggy boost response, especially on this motor. If we go from a 2.2 to a 2.5, I want to show how much that helps with spool, because it's bigger motor, it makes more torque, it makes more average power production. So it's definitely going to help with the response rate of the turbo. So that you can get, the thing is, it makes more torque already because it's bigger. But then if you add on top of that it got the turbo to spool quicker, then you see a very big difference in power because of that spool rate. Because if all of a sudden you have 5 or 6 pounds instead of 1 or 2 pounds or no pounds of boost, you can see some fairly dramatic differences, changes in power. And some of that is, it's a little bit artificial because you have turbo boost on one of them and you don't on the other one. So it's an NA versus boosted combination. But that's the benefit of having a more powerful NA motor that you're then applying boost to. And I can't wait to jump into all of this stuff. I'm really excited about putting giant sized throttle bodies on here, putting 2 throttle bodies on there. Obviously going from the thing that I want to do, that I'm sure everybody does and everybody wanted to do, is, you know, it's a non-intercooled motor, so we definitely want to put an intercooler on it, and then good things will happen. Then we can raise the boost, we can lower the charge temperature, I can show you what the charge temperature change is, we can monitor back pressure, you know, all kinds of really cool stuff that I haven't seen that information out there. Obviously people have done intercooler tests, but we'll do E85 tests, and we'll do air to water and air to air. And because I want to try, normally we just run the big air to water intercooler because it's easy to do on the engine dyno. But what I want to do is run some smaller, like the T2 size, even the factory T2 setup. I want to run some small air to air intercoolers on this and see what the change in charge temperature is, because it, you know, if it only changes it by 50 or 60 degrees, then it's one thing, but I'm thinking it's still going to be changing it more like 100 degrees. But the problem is, like, especially on the factory T2 deal, is that the core is fairly small. So I think at some point it would ultimately become restrictive, and it would ultimately not be able to cool the charge air once you start getting up into the, you know, 20 plus pounds of boost. It's going to be better than not having intercooler, not having any intercooler at all, but it's still not going to be as good as having the right size one, or having a really good one, or having, in this case, having an air-to-water core. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe we find out that, and like I did the test that I have, the video that I have up, if you haven't seen it, make sure to check it out, where we did the air-to-air versus the air-to-water, and when they were both sized correctly, they essentially did the same thing. We ran ambient water through the air-to-water. Now that core obviously was smaller, so the nice thing about that is you can fit it in places, and the air-to-air that we used was fairly good size, because to be of equivalent cooling power, let's say, and heat dissipation, the air-to-air has to be much bigger. It's only normal. I mean, the transfer medium of air is going to be, it's not nearly as dense as water, so it's not nearly as effective. So the air-to-water can be much smaller. So all of that's is really good testing. Plus, E85 on these things. We're going to find out how a lot of people are complaining about the Philpro gaskets, and we'll find out about that stuff. 10 millimeter head bolts on this one. We'll step up to 11 millimeter or go to ARP stuff. The motor or the car that I'm picking up has lots of that stuff already, so it's very cool. I have to make sure to stay hydrated. It's very warm out today. So what do you guys think about the intake test? And then what are you guys doing? Let's see, the T2 cores get crazy restrictive when the boost goes up into the high teens. I would think so. I mean, they sized it so that it fits and works in the factory position and running the boost levels that they're running. They didn't design it so, hey, you know what we should do when we design this core? We should design this core. I know we're only going to run like 11 pounds or something with it, but let's design it so that it can run like 20 or 30 pounds. That would be really cool, right? The engineers don't think like that. And they shouldn't, because they don't want people doing that. Let's see. I would like to see the Omni GLH on the chassis dyno for spooling tests. You can start the rolling test at like 1500 RPM and see boost threshold. It could show you how good a billet China fan is. Okay. Do you think that the billet wheel is going to show something over a cast wheel? I really wish I could do that test. The one that people want is they want a billet wheel that's exactly the same as a cast wheel, and that's really hard to do. So it's hard to tell whether the billety goodness is how much goodness there actually is, because normally when they do a billet wheel, excuse me, they also change the design. So if you're going to change the design, the change in response rate could have come from the design and not just the material. In the summer, heat the air to air. It won't do much. Even with 100-degree air cooling the charge temperature, if you're cooling the charge temperature that's 200 degrees or 250 degrees, with 100-degree air, it still brings the temperature way down. And it's better than not having it, obviously. If you can cool it with 30-degree air, though, it's even better. Anyone have an OEM RX-7 FC intercooler selling for real cheap? Reapers in the house. Yeah, the 2.2 is actually a Chrysler developed motor. And are we going to put a Borg S400 on it just for kicks? We could do spool tests with the S400. I don't know that we'd ever get it to spool. Iron heads versus aluminum heads on this motor? Do you have any cams you would sell for a 5.3 with twin eBay GT45s? Are you trying to make like 1,200 horsepower or something with that, Phil? The first Omnis were designed with VW. Early motors, but not because they had smaller motors on them, but they weren't 2.2s. So what's the consensus on the 200 horsepower goal with the 85, a real tune and a real intercooler? And I say yes. It'll be interesting to see. That's what I'm hoping. If this is a good running motor, I'm hoping that that's a reality, but that's one of the first things that we're going to find out. Richard, do you remember an old magazine article called King of the Cheap Speed featuring this Turbo 2.2 and a Dodge Omni? I don't remember that. What magazine was it? It kind of sounds like it was, is it Grassroots Motorsports or something? I remember the Super 60 kit. And 300 horsepower is possible. That turbo would definitely do it. I heard that the 2.2, 2.5 head was based on the Slant 6. I don't know. I haven't seen that. GM has oval port aluminum head options for the 396. The aluminum heads that they had for the 396 were rec ports, I think. You're talking about the L89 option, and if that's the case, those weren't oval port, they were rec ports. Would alcohol injection help lower the charge area? Yes, it would. What are the power goals with the Barra? I don't have power goals with the Barra. We're going to do the modifications and see what it does and see how far that particular NA, small rod motor can actually, what it can actually do. Yeah, William, we're familiar with the Super 60 kit, but we're not, when we're talking about making 200, we're talking about making 200 at 7 pounds. Phil, you want 1200 or more? So then any stage 1 or stage 2 cam will easily do that. You could put a stage 3 turbo cam if you want, depending on how you want the thing to spool and stuff. All Richards are awesome. Thank you very much. Off topic, but our AFR Enforcer 185 is too small for a 392 with boost with a Turbonetic 76. No, the 185 flows pretty well. If I was putting together a 392, I probably would go with a 205, but we've made lots of power with the 185. And since you're adding boost to it, you're going to make a ton. Is there more Ameribera content coming? Yes, there is, as soon as I get it back from the machine shop. Just dropping in for some turbo talk. We got a turbo right here, and I got 2 of them over here. XC, thank you very much. Stock LS3, L76 car intake or the fast LSXR 102 on a 6-liter, 6-speed, single turbo drag week car. If you have rec port heads on it, I would just put the stock LS3 intake on it. You're not going to get anything from the fast. Fast I love on the cathedral port stuff. In fact, it's probably the best manifold that you could put on there, up to 6,500 or so, and maybe even a little higher than that. It'll make the most average power. But on a rec port motor, I just wouldn't spend the money on a fast on a LS3 base motor. I hope you do a video going through some of this standalone ECU stuff. I'll show you the tune. I'll show you exactly what we do, where the timing is at every boost level and all that stuff. One of the guys sent me information on what the factory ECUs did and what the Mopar ECUs did in terms of timing at different power levels or at different boost levels. So I can incorporate that hopefully in the factory tune and then upgrade from there. Linwood Garage. Hey, Richard, if you had a motor that made 900 horsepower NA, what would it make with 15 pounds of boost? It could make 1800 if you have enough turbo. If everything was right, you could double the power output at 15 pounds. Assuming the motor would take that, assuming you had enough fuel flow, assuming they had the right fuel and charge cooling and tune. My cousin had a Dodge CSX, Turbo, Shadow. Yep, those are cool. Honda Tech's here with the live chat. Does the Vortec 4200 use the same trans? It doesn't use the same bell housing as an LS. The Grim Reaper, my modded 2.5 turbo I had, my Omni with a 5-speed, I couldn't keep a set of tires on it. They are pretty torquey. I mean, and these things had fairly good boost response back in the day, if I remember right. Flying Far, I'm sending Brian the LV3s. Want to talk with you about things you want for dyno test. Thanks. Scott, okay, cool. I think Brian wants to do cams for that, which will be good. I think ported heads would be interesting, and then obviously we want to do boost on it. I just don't know if the pumps and injectors from the LT stuff will go on there. That would be interesting to see how much fuel we have to play with. What water temperature run on the dyno? We can run whatever we want. We can put we have a thermostat on the dyno, and we have a sealed system, so we can make it be 100 degrees if the water temperature in the tower is low enough. We can make it be 140, 160, 180, 200, whatever we want. Normally, I like to run it somewhere near 150. When you get your Omni, put in a G valve so you can high and low boost settings. What's a G valve? I must not be hip, man. I don't even. I'm sure it's some sort of switching mechanism, right? Or is it a dual stage like boost controller or something? Is the Omni going up north with you? Grudge match against my XR4 Ti. I didn't buy it to drag race. I bought it to do a bunch of dyno testing with. And I don't even know anything about, I mean, I don't know enough about the thing yet, and I don't even have it yet. Uh-oh, Mike said he was getting worked over by Omnis in a 78 Trans Am back in the day. They were pretty sporty. I mean, a GLHS was probably really a 14-second car. And that might not seem like much now, but back in the day it was. How did the 2.2 jump ahead of the 5.9, flip the pistons? What kind of power is a standard 70mm on3 turbo rated for? I don't know. I haven't done any on3 stuff, so I'm not real familiar with that turbo. But the guys should be able to tell you from on3. Let's see. Rocket Duck. I had a 2.2 turbo in my 87 Shelby Shadow and an ECU that would make 7 pounds at half throttle and 15 pounds on full throttle. I could easily beat 500 Mustangs. The Shadow was actually a pretty sporty car back in the day. Okay, Kyle, folks talk of moving the thermostat housing to the end of the head. On my dyno mule, I drilled the coolant port below the exhaust port, oversizing the block head and gaskets to good effect. Is this on the 2.2? Folks talk about moving this to the end of the head. Seems like a lot of work. What turbo would you put on an M52 BMW? It depends on what your power needs are. You know, if you want 400 horsepower, I'd choose a 400 horsepower turbo. If you want 6 or 8 or 1,000, then you pick your turbo accordingly. Sinister, if you're talking about trying to mate the different engines and transmissions together, what we did on the 4200 is we got an adapter that allowed us to bolt the 4200 to a standard small block Chevy bell housing. And we got it from the guys from Mark over at MTech. Are you still going to do the Bear and the Fox now that you know you have to chop the front of it? I'm not chopping the front of my car off. I thought it just bolted in. An 88 Shelby Z, that was a good one. I think that was that the 16 valve motor. I think that was a 225 horsepower one. 4.8 with an Eagle stroker crank. Is that a 383? That's what people normally do. You'd still choose your cam according to what you want to do with the truck. Is it a daily driver? Do you want like a small truck cam in it? You can put something bigger in it if you do go to a 383. A 4.8, I would normally get a stage 1 or a torque cam because I like something small in the 4.8. Most guys tend to over cam them. If you're going to do a bigger motor, you could go with a stage 2, or if you want something to be more cammy, you could go with a stage 3. Just turn on the hot water faucet. We can run the temperature or whatever we want in this. Yeah, the 4060 is, if you're making a lot of power, is going to be a little iffy, but unfortunately, you would need to have the adapter to put something else in, like a 4080. Oh, a gate valve, okay. Flipping pistons. I was just commenting on Uncle Tony's live feeds. If you guys haven't seen, I think he's probably still on right now. I thought 91 fuel burned great between 178 to 184. So you're thinking that the fuel knows the temperature of the water? On 376 millimeters, good for 800 horsepower. Rex, thank you very much. Did you have a question? The Mopar book says to flip the pistons. I've seen that excerpt on the out of the book. Michael, how are we going on the Aussie Bear stuff? I just got back down to West Tech. I haven't done anything with the Aussie yet. I'm with the Barry yet. We still need to get the head fixed because it's got at least one bad valve, and then I need to do the other things to it. We need to do the ARP head studs or other head studs. We need to do the oil pump. I'm gonna have to take it apart and put ring gap in it. I had an 85 Shelby Charger with this motor in it, MP computer. The MP computer made a big difference. Your mom had a GLHS? That's pretty cool. Oh, a Granger valve, okay. Dave, if you have a 4.8 liter in a 2008 Chevy van, it's definitely an LS. The 2.2 head and the 2.5 head are the same. There are two different heads, but it's not 2.2 and 2.5. It's just different years. One of them is like a bathtub head or a G head or something like that. Yeah, Kyle, I've been looking for the Dakota 2.2 and 2.5. Now, on the Dakota, there's two different 2.5s. There's the Dodge one, and then there's also an AMC one. And the AMC won't fit because that's actually more like a Chevy bell housing pattern. But the 2.2 and the Dodge 2.5, but I just haven't found any of those Dakotas in any of the wrecking yards. And I don't care about starters or any of that stuff. All we care about is that the block will bolt to the bell housing and that the bell housing will bolt to the dyno. So we need a bell housing like with the 3800 that has the four holes, and that it locates in a big center hole because there's a centering ring, and then that bolts up, and then obviously the block bolts to the bell housing. We don't run a thermostat in the motor when we're on the dyno. The dyno controls the water temperature, not the motor. As far as I know, Dan, this is a stock head for the 84. Do a 2J or a Honda J in the Fox body. Not a 2J I wouldn't do. They're just way too much money. I do have the RB, but a Honda V6 would be good, like a 3.5. Oh, 92 and 93 Daytonas, IROCs were the 16 valve cars. See, that's why you're here. 88 was a turbo 2. That's still a good motor, though. Craig is saying that the bear into the Fox body is a bolt-in application. You just get the engine mounts from Tough Mounts in Australia. My dad had a brand new 84 Chrysler Laser. Awesome. Yeah, this should be a G-head. Bradley, have a Gen 3 stock bottom end 5.3, gap ring 72 millimeter T6, had a Magnuson MP12 with the blower cam. You think it will be able to tune and run decent? Yes, it will be the same. What you'll find is that if you have a blower cam, it might have a wide LSA. It's going to be a little soft down low and not want to spool the turbo quite as well, but it's still going to do what it does, and it will still work with the turbo. Ink Cars, I'm not sure what to drop my 2.2 turbo and rear-wheel drive 5-speed into. Well, you need to send me the bell housing. Who has a bell housing out there that they'll sell me? I need a 2.2, 2.5 bell housing. Getting a 64 Polysphere soon. Going to turbo it. Nice. 383 Big Block and a 95 Dakota with turbo. All of that's good stuff. The 3800 is another one I'm working on. Unfortunately, I ordered a flywheel for it, and the drive plate that we had last night that I was trying to bolt onto we were just going to run it on the flex plate, but unfortunately the drive plate won't fit in the bell housing. So I ordered a flywheel, and then we're going to have to configure a new, smaller drive plate, which Westech has a couple of them for other things that they've run, like a Jaguar and a Honda and stuff. And so we're going to have to get all of that together to make the 3800 run. Yeah, I need to find freeze plugs. The freeze plugs that I got from AutoZone were not the correct ones. The Granger valve. I've never tried one of the Granger valves. When we were doing them back in the day, we called them fish valves. We would go to the pet stores and get the little aquarium valves and just use those. Some of them were a little bit touchy though. A Suzuki Swift GT Big Bang. Those are hard to come by. That's like my little Sprint. I want to see a budget 3.3 liter Porsche turbo build. There are many things in that statement that don't go together. Yeah, everybody hit the like button. Dave, I try to answer all the questions, man, and all the comments. I go in and read all the comments for all the videos that I do. This isn't me, man. This is us. The 2.5 can easily be obtained online for $1,000. The 2.5 what? K24 in the Mustang. I was thinking more of the K24 or the 4200 in the Nova. Dave, it's definitely worth springs, and if you're going to put lifters in it, that's good, because then you're going to have to put head gaskets and all kinds of stuff in there. But lifters and springs, yeah. Oh, the Ameribera in the Fox. The 2.2 turbo manifold will bolt to the 2.5 head. They're the same. They use the same manifolds on both of those. Redline, the shift kit might help that situation. Yeah, fish tank valves. That's what we were using back in the day when I was doing stuff with Crazy Dave over at Tiny Avenger and the little SVO turbo that he was doing. Ben, thanks for stopping by. Nobody's going to pay $1,000 for a 2.5. Are you talking about a 2.5 turbo motor? That seems like a lot for that, although they're really hard to find. Does Westech have an adapter for a Porsche engine? I can bring a twin turbo air-cooled engine. I don't know that they've ever run a Porsche engine. I can't remember them ever running one here. They run them on the chassis dyno, but not on the engine dyno. Yeah, Jamie, we know that the fish valves are not Granger valves. The Granger valves are like high digit stuff. We could go buy the fish valves for like, I don't know, $1.289. Yeah, Craig, I thought that putting the bear in was not going to be an insurmountable deal. I didn't think it required it, but I haven't seen it, so I just didn't want to comment on it. Would love to see a Toyota UZ. Those would be good. Jamie Gold is a certified Shelby Dodge guy. Dan talked to my Top Fuel buddy yesterday. He said a 1471 takes 1,000 horsepower to drive. That doesn't surprise me. They're flowing a lot of air. Just got on. What is the status of the 360 Magnum? It's still sitting in my storage. Maybe check and see if a slant 6 bell housing will work if the engines are actually related. I don't think that the block is related. I think that the question was more about the head design. But we have a slant 6 bell housing. I could see if it works. Buck 347. Buck 289 is a better deal. Or 350 is even better. EcoBoost 4-cylinder, those are good too. But that's a little too modern. Slant 6 bell housing is different. 225 slants and trucks came with 11-inch clutch. Just got my 496 big block Chevy running. What do you usually run for timing on them? It has 24cc dome pistons, 120cc chambers, and 10.5 to 1 compression. Normally, a big block can be up around 36 degrees on an iron-headed deal with a really big chamber on it. Sometimes they go as much as 40, but we just keep adding timing until they stop making power. Calvin said he observed it on the dyno, the 4200 coils with the heat sinks on them blew out around 480 horsepower. Seems similar to what you observed when you thought it was dropping spark. We were way beyond that. Maybe he was talking about 480 wheel horsepower. But when we were running this on the dyno with the turbo stuff, I think we put in the later coils. And I think that some of what Calvin was doing, I don't think he had his plug gap down enough. I don't think he had it down in the teens where it needs to be. The other thing is I don't know if he's able to adjust the dwell for those coils. Twin turbo, a flathead. I've seen guys run the Vortec guys back when they were doing the flat fire, ran a supercharger on one with real good results. You really need new head gaskets, Felpro only. These have Felpros on it. I don't know if something's been done. You know, it's an 84, so chances are this head's been off. Modify the corner water jackets with a punch to create a pinch point in the back corner of the head. If you don't, 24 pounds of boost will push compression ring out. Yeah, if it's a 3.6, it's making 290 horsepower. That's good power. Andy. The 2.5 did have balance shafts. Does anybody know that they leave balance shafts in on the later 2.2s as well? Yes, we know, Tim. A high value 3.9. The Neon SRT4 2.4 bell housings were very close to the 2.2. Well, by very close, will it bolt up to the block? Because that's all we care about. As long as it'll bolt up to the block and that the input shaft is centered in the hole of the bell housing, that's really all we care about. Yeah, CJ has an 83 2.3 liter Ford turbo. I bought from the junkyard. It burns oil at the startup. Fresh rebuild turbo. Every time I check, plug 3 is black and leak down. Yeah, check the guides and seals on that and see if it's dropping oil down in there. Everything lines up except the starters. Yeah, and I don't care about the starter. So if the Neon SRT will do it, will the PT Cruiser also? Did the PT Cruiser ever come with that 2.4 turbo motor and a 5-speed? And is that bell housing, does it have, the problem I've had with a lot of the front-wheel drive transmissions, the manual transmissions, is that the bell housing part bolts up, but where the bell housing bolts to the transmission, it's not your typical 4-bolt pattern that they are on a rear-wheel drive. We need that to bolt to the dyno. So if the front-wheel drive trans bell housing doesn't do that, like for instance the stock Omni one, it won't work. An offie on the dyno would be cool. Yeah, we don't care about having a starter. We have a starter on the dyno. We have 2 of them, as a matter of fact. I'm sure Chrysler did pay Mitsubishi for the royalties because the, Mitsubishi owned the rights to that for the balance shaft stuff. Years ago, I flow tested the 1-piece versus the 2-piece intake on my flow bench. Picked up significant flow. If I can get a hold of both those intakes, we'll test both of them. Tom, take a drive up to North Dakota. I still have the 82 Corolla with 3TC. That is a cool combination. Tom, send me some photos of that. I know Calvin was busting it out, man. 600 wheel horsepower, 26 pounds with a, I think the motor's not really been modified. Might even be unopened. I have an 87 Humvee swap diesel engine, the 5.7 Chevy 76 millimeter turbo. That will make the 5.7 Chevy much better. Kyle, the 2.2, 2.5 always shows spark knock damage first on the intake exhaust side of the piston. Improvements in water flow on that side are worthwhile. So how do we increase the water flow on that side? Compression ring on the head gasket, run 33 pounds now on 2.2, 86 model, blue head gaskets left and right until modified with a punch. So can you send me a photo of what you're talking about? TurboGoodsToy.com. Turbo Gods, oh, even better. The Merc Cruiser 3.7 4-cylinder, those would be good. Coolest Omni test, I'm assuming James Reed. What's good for a 6-pound mill? The 94-95 Dakota 2.5. We know what bell housing is. We're just having a hard time finding it. Oh, I'll send you, I'll put my email address in there so you can see it. Killer B16, yeah, they will. Are you using, Turbo Gods, have you used any MLS head gaskets on these? Turbo motors don't have to have forged cranks or forged rods. That's all just silly. Look at what we do with an LS. If you had to pick between 11R head or the Renegade for a 306 small block forward, what you go with? Yeah, I can actually say whatever I want, Eric. There's no loser there. I don't. If one of them makes 4 or 5 horsepower more, it might do it on one combination, and the other one might be better on the other. I don't think you're gonna. Whatever one you pick, it's going to work for what you're doing, and you're not going to know which one of those is better on your combination unless you did an exact back-to-back test. Both of those are really good. I like in this case, and I love the guys at AFR, I'd pick the 11R head only because I like the way that the outside of it looks. The head obviously works very well too. The way that they machine the outside of the head, it looks like it's chock full of ability goodness, and you know, we know that's worth power right there. Does the dyno connect to an R154 bell housing? I don't know what that is. They seem to leak on multi-layer gaskets. Is that because people are not prepping the surfaces correctly? I mean, that's kind of a critical element. You have to have the right surface finish to make the MLS head gasket work. You better's in the house. See, you're here for the live chat. That's awesome. I've never broken a crank at any power or boost level on any motor just because of power. So I have my doubts that, especially on something like this, I think you're going to hurt something else before you hurt the crankshaft. His vet boy spelled backwards. So boosted drummer, you run 11mm ARP head studs with my Chromatic MLS, and it's held fine at 35 to 42 pounds. I've never had that problem with that combination on any motor, on a small block Chevy, big block Chevy, and I don't know about the 11mm, but on LS, and that's what we're putting on the 4200 as well. So as long as we have the surface finish right, I would think that those things should work. Kyle, no need for punches, surface head and block, flat, Felpro gasket, 10mm head bolts, lightweight rod, stock 85 bottom end, made 365, 389 foot-pounds on a dyno jet, ran 730s at 100 in the 8th, nice. Yeah, circle track racing is definitely hard on, and that kind of racing where you have a lot of cycles and you're under power for a really long time. I can see where that would be a problem. What we're doing on this is not the same thing. When it comes to small block or big block Chevy, you don't want a cast crank motor. Again, we've run cast cranks way up there. The Ecotechs work good. The R134 is what they use in the Turbo Supras. Westech should have a setup for that. They don't, because they don't run Supras here. If they do, you could run the AX15 because it shares the same bell housing to trans bolt pattern that works with the 2.25. They've never run Supras here, so that I know of, not while I've been here. Yeah, Mark, I agree. We're just talking about that with ARP head studs and MLS gaskets. It works pretty well. I mean, look what we did with and on the Big Bang motor where we did 1500. That one had the CA625 head studs. Although I don't know would we not have been able to do that with the standard ARP head studs? I think we would have been able to, because I don't think that we were at a point where those were stretching. They're not very stretchy. We have not been able to run this yet. We don't have a bell housing for it. Uh-oh, oil failure on a 3.5 liter twin turbo on a F-150 EcoBoost. That's a bummer. Try a small block Chevy or a big block Chevy with a cast crank. Take a look at the Boneyard Boost videos where we ran the Vortec on it. I've also run turbos on them, and we've run them up near 1,000 horsepower with the cast cranks on them. In fact, the whole stock bottom end. Let's see, Aaron, what is the ideal runner volume for a street-driven 306 small block Chevy? There is no ideal runner volume. Take a look at the video that's up where we compared runner volume, and at wide open throttle, you're not going to see a lot of difference. You're going to see more of a difference from the change in head flow and or valve size than you will from port volume. What you might see is a change in response rate or part throttle acceleration from a change in port volume, but at wide open throttle, you're not going to see that. Or if you see that, it's in relation to something else, because when you change from the port volume of the head, you also changed, you had a change in flow rate and or valve size, which is probably causing the change in power. Update on the 2005 head, I don't have it yet, so I don't have any updates or any flow numbers yet. Thanks, Boosted Drummer. So be careful when I'm removing the valve cover. So they stick on there pretty good. So I just chisel them off, right? I don't have a 2JZ GE engine on the list. It'd be pretty far down the list if I had it. So now you have a couple of rampages, one with 2 engines from an SRT 2.4 turbo. Nice. I don't do HP tuners because I'm not a tuner. Have never used that. I've never even looked at it. All the testing here on the engine dyno is now one of 3 things: fast or Holley or the MS3 Pro. Yeah, Linwood, that you can get that motor, and it's a good starting point. The long block LQ9 with LS3 heads, that's a good combination. A 6-liter with LS3 heads is a good start because with the right camshaft, you can make a lot of power. Can you run E85 through an AVS2 carburetor? I don't know that you'd have enough jetting to do it. Can you get enough fuel through it? I don't know what the limitation is on fuel flow through the available jetting on that thing. Why can't you make a Megasquirt run the 2JGE distributor from like an IS300? Why am I trying to, what am I trying to put a distributor in? Got to get back to working on the trains. They're not going to work on themselves. Got 2 minutes left. Thanks, Daniel. Let's see, Kazi P38 for a 306 is what I would have run, but cost change things. I ran Windsor Juniors. Kazi P38 heads on a 306 are a lot unless you're trying to make a really high RPM 306. Which aftermarket ECU do you like best for turbo cars? I'm the wrong guy to ask that because I don't do the drivability and use all of the options that an ECU would have available to it. For me, every one of the ECUs we use will allow me to adjust the air fuel and the timing and now the cam timing when we have motors that have cam timing changes. And so they'll all do that for the things that I need. Like I said, for guys that want stuff, other options, they probably would have a better idea than I would. Have you considered one of the Buick or Olds 215s? I do like those motors. I'm converting one of my Porsches to EFI from CIS, and lots of people run Haltech or MS3 Pro. All of those work. Cool. Kyle, you use on my old stock 1985 2.2 bottom end, I use the Turbonetics Super V T4 stage 3 turbine 063 AR. You guys used on the Tiny Avenger, yeah. 2.3 turbo series in Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forward. That was way back in the day. That was with Tiny Avenger. That was with Super Dave. 560 wheel horsepower is pretty stout. Now, somebody came on here the other night telling me that somebody went 8s in one of these motors and was making like 900 with one of these 2.2s with a ported Maserati head and all that stuff. I haven't seen it and don't know anything about it, but somebody was telling me that that's what they were doing. Super Dave or Crazy Dave. Dave Hannerhan. Yeah, I need to look back. I might have thrown all of my Muscle Mustang stuff away. Okay, guys, got to get going. Lots and lots of work to do. Thank you guys for showing up. Make sure to go to the video that I posted, and I've got to get back to work. And hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow I could be showing you guys what I'm hoping is a very super cool Omni GLH turbo. Thanks for showing up, guys. I will see you later.